Welcome to In the News for January 19th, 2024. I am Brett Burney from appsandlaw.com.
And this is Jeff Richardson from iPhone JD. Hey, Brett.
Hey, Jeff. Happy Apple Vision Pro pre-order day.
Indeed.
You did it this morning, right? Did it happen this morning? Please tell us.
Yes. You know how when you purchase something with an Apple credit card, you get 3% back on your purchases? Let's just say that I got a lot of money back today is the good way to look at it. The bad way to look at it is that I had to spend quite a bit of money. But yes, I did the pre-order process this morning.
That's
and
good.
I have a lot to say about it.
Yes?
Because we now know
Go.
so much more than we knew before. You know, before today, I just had a ton of questions about the Apple Vision Pro, and Apple did not provide us a lot of information until this morning when the pre-orders went live. So first of all, for the first time, we learned today that there's 3 sizes for the Apple Vision Pro. There's the entry level 256, but then if you want to have 512 megabytes, that's an extra $200. And if you want to go up to 1 terabyte, that's another $200. I went for the entry level one. I figured the entry level one would be fine. You know, the big questions probably, do you want to store things on it, download lots of videos, you know, and stuff like that. Hopefully 256 is enough for me. We'll see. You know, I have no idea, but this is just a brand new product.
Yeah, who knows right now?
The one thing that I had,
so we got that.
The one thing I had so many questions about, Brett, was glasses, because Apple says that you really, they say you should not wear your glasses with an Apple Vision Pro. If you wear contact lenses, you can wear those with one exception that we learned today. The new exception is if you wear hard contact lenses. Apple said that one of the part of the magic of Apple Vision Pro is that the device can see where you are looking, which is critical, so that you're basically your eyes become your cursor. And Apple warns that if you have hard contact lenses, that feature may not work, which is a pretty big problem. So that's something to keep in mind. If you just wear glasses like I do, what Apple says is you want to get inserts, and you can use if you just have reader glasses, then you can get that for $100. But for an actual prescription, it costs $150. They purchased from a company called Zeiss, which is an excellent optical company. Very well known. But I had so many questions about how this would work, and it worked pretty seamless. When I purchased it this morning, I said I want to get prescription lenses. And so Apple said, okay, that's an extra $150. And then after I finished my entire purchase process, after I paid money, then it sent me to a screen to say, now you can start the process of dealing with the prescription. And what I had to do, you have to have a valid prescription. In the United States, prescriptions are valid for 1 year. I had an issue that I knew about a week or two ago, because although I do go to the eye doctor every year, I went last year, like a year ago on Tuesday. So as I'm talking to you today, my prescription was expired by only 3 days. I'm like, oh, no. So I mean, I was going to see my eye doctor anyway. I made an appointment for this past Wednesday, so I went to go see him 2 days ago. Got my prescription, which he actually did tweak a little bit. So I planned for it. So fortunately, I had my brand new prescription ready to go. But keep that in mind that prescriptions have an expiration date on them. And if yours doesn't have, you know, if it's prescribed, you will not be able to use this. So I had my new prescription, and what it said is, you know, click this button and you can upload your prescription, or you can take a picture of it and give it to them. But then I was still a little nervous, Brett, because I know that I have pretty poor vision. I have very, you know, my glasses are very powerful. Without my glasses, I can't see very well at all. And so I was afraid, is it possible that because I am blind as a bat, that my prescription is going to be too powerful? I was also concerned because I wear progressive lenses. I had no idea if that would have anything to do with this. So here's what I learned. Progressive lenses don't matter at all. That's fine. They're okay with that. When you look at your glasses prescription, it has all these little columns of things that I don't really understand, but you know, somebody that knows optical stuff would know. But if you have something called a prism value, then you cannot use prescription lenses. Now, what is a prism value? I had to look that up today, and that is for people that have certain eye conditions that basically cause double vision. There's a certain type of glasses you can buy that use prisms in there to redirect the light, so that instead of you sort of seeing things double, it redirects it so that you see it single. That's not an eye condition that I have. But if you do have that eye condition, and you probably know if you have that eye condition, then that's something. But otherwise, it was fine. And in fact, even after I ordered it, I have since found that there's a page on Apple's website which has all the information about the optical stuff. In fact, this is it right here. You're showing on the screen.
Yeah.
And there's actually a place where they will link you to the Zeiss website, and you can actually type in your prescription numbers, and they will tell you right then and there, is your prescription okay? And so I did that just before we started recording today, Brett. I actually typed in the numbers, and Zeiss said, big thumbs up. I'm totally fine. So I was good to know.
Nice.
There you're showing it right now. So
interesting.
You can double check yourself if you have your prescription and you think, wow, maybe there's something funky about my prescription. Go ahead and just type in your numbers. But again, I thought that I was on the edge, and it turns out that I was fine. So hopefully the same is true for anyone out there who wants to order it.
Just the amount of planning. Like, this is a specific page on the Zeiss website, eyeglass prescription guide for Zeiss optical inserts for Apple Vision Pro. It's not like Apple hasn't done this in the past, right? We know that, but I mean, like, they've been talking about this for months and months, and they have this website. I love this. I love the fact that you can go and check out your prescription beforehand. That's great.
I'll say one last thing about the prescription. If you have, through the place that you work, some people have something called a flexible spending account or a health savings account, which basically means, like, we have it at my office. At the end of a calendar year, I can say, okay, next year, I want you to take out, $1,000 from my salary and hold that for certain medical expenses. Apple says on its FAQ that this may actually be eligible for it, depending upon your plan. Now, I didn't know that. If I did, I would have. It's only $150. You're basically saving the pre-tax value of it. But if you have one of those plans, you might want to look into it. I mean, if you're going to spend the money anyway, you might as well spend the $150
absolutely
pre-tax instead of post-tax. Okay, so the next thing that I learned when I was ordering this morning was that when it gets to the point of delivery, what they told me, Brett, was that I could pick it up at my local Apple store, or they would deliver it to me. You know how Apple has that service that they will deliver things, directly to you express. And it gave me the option of doing it. And I actually did parenthetically think it might be funny if you and I were recording the podcast and, like, a courier showed up with the Apple Vision Pro.
We've done that before, right?
We have done that before. But I actually decided, it specifically says Apple recommends that you go to the Apple store. And so what I did is I made an appointment. So this was part of my buying process. For me personally, I selected the very first appointment that I could see, which was 8:30 a.m., which is before the store even opens here in New Orleans.
Nice.
And so I will be there at 8:30. And the reason that I thought it made sense is there's all these different bands on it that sort of there's something called a light seal. So, like, there's the hardware part.
I'm looking at this.
But then right behind the hardware part, there's this gray thing that looks to be about an inch or two thick, and it is actually what covers the front and it's sort of the goggle part. And that light seal comes in many different sizes. It looked to me like it actually comes in like 28 different sizes, but I just saw something this morning that was written by Dan Morin over at 6 Colors, and he said that it actually comes in 4 sizes that Apple calls N, which I'm guessing is normal, N plus, W, which I'm guessing is wide, and W plus. So whether there's 4 sizes or 20 sizes, suffice it to say, now when I actually purchased it, I had to use my iPhone and I had to move my head around just like I was doing one of those face scans. And it was supposed to guess, the size of my face based upon that. But I'm glad that I'm going to an Apple store, because that way somebody can double check. And if for some reason it guessed it wrong, I'm sure they'll have the other sizes there. So
I was going to say, they'll have a box of these, right? So, like, if one doesn't fit, and I mean, to me, that's the better way to go. So quickly, can I just ask on this? Did you have to measure your head to get the size of the strap? Okay, because it's adjustable, right?
Yeah, all it did, it was just like the Face ID thing. You did the circle once, and it said, "Great." Let's do it a second time. I did the circle a second time. It said, "Great," and it was done. How accurate is that? Time will tell. We'll see. But that's how they did it.
Okay.
So then the last decision I had to make was what accessories to get. And this was something I actually did not even think about beforehand. I was like, wow, I didn't. You're spending so much money on this thing. And it does come with a number of things. Like, it comes, for example, with a little cover for the lenses, so that when you're not using it, you can at least protect the front part. That comes for free. Free.
Okay.
You're paying
$3,500. That's nice.
That comes for free. And it comes with 2 different straps that hold it on your head. But the ones that jumped out at me that look like accessories that some people might want to consider is, first of all, you can get an extra battery for $200. Remember that when you are using this thing on battery, it's got a cord that goes down to a battery, and the battery lasts about 2 hours. And so if you want to have like a long time to use it, like on a plane ride, for example, that's going to be maybe more than 2 hours, I guess you could take a second battery with you, and you can get your first 2 hours on the first battery and the second 2 hours on the other battery. I did not buy an extra battery. I guess I could go and buy one later if I wanted to, but those are $200.
I would think so. Yeah,
something to consider. But frankly, even if I'm on a plane, you can plug the battery into power. So it seems like that would make more sense. If you don't usually have a power jack in your seat. So just plug it in. Belkin makes something, I think we talked about this last week, called the battery holder. If you wanted to clip that battery on you, I did not purchase that, but that's $50 if you wanted to get it.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But then there's something that I did purchase. Wow. Apple sells the Apple Vision Pro travel case, which is sort of a big hard case that gives you a place to put everything in it. And even though I don't know that I'm going to travel that much, it occurred to me that, I probably want to have a case to sort of keep this thing safe. And although I'm sure third parties will sell cases that are less expensive, because the Apple one is $200, and Apple is always historically overpriced in their cases. As I think through history, Brett, I mean, I remember 25 years ago spending $100 for a leather iPod case that I know was overpriced, but I enjoyed it and I was happy to have it.
You loved it.
It was nice. And over the time, something like this, like that was the one that I'm like, I've spent this much money. Why not get the official case that is going to be the right size? It's going to give me some protection.
It's nice. It's going to last. It's Apple. Yeah, I mean, they are expensive, but they do last. Yep.
So that was $200. And then another question, this is not really an accessory, but Apple said, do you want to get Apple Care for this thing? And I'm like, I didn't even think about that. And then Apple said that will be $500 for Apple Care. And I'm like, you know what?
Hello.
I know this is expensive. And I know that if I drop it, it's going to be ridiculously expensive to fix. But
you got a case, so
yeah, I did not get the Apple Care Plus.
Whoa!
And if I regret these words in the future, then I don't know what to say. But I did not get Apple Care.
Yeah. Okay.
Two other things that I saw that are not really accessories, that are just sort of tips that I saw when I was purchasing it. Apple has like some FAQs. One of them is, the question is, can you share an Apple Vision Pro with somebody else? And Apple's answer is yes, you can. But they say that that person may need a different light band and a different light seal. And by the way, Apple sells those light bands. They are not cheap. The light bands are $200. And I think the light band comes with the seal, but if you needed to buy a seal separately, that's $30. So like if you and your spouse wanted to share one, first of all, if they have a different prescription, you'll have to get that, for them.
Well, yeah.
And then second of all, they might have a different light band, but at least the main part of the thing that you can actually share. Another thing I didn't mention about the prescription eyeglasses is when you purchase them, Zeiss says for no additional fee, and they claim that it will not delay your order. So I did it. You can etch your name or initials onto the lenses. And the reason that Zeiss recommended this is like, if you're ever around somebody else that has lenses and you're switching lenses, that way you could actually look at the lens and see which one is yours. And so I figured, since they claimed on the website it wasn't going to delay delivery, again, not that I plan to be around lots of people. I may never take my lenses out, but I figured why not? So I just put Jeff in there, Jeff, and so that was my engraving on it. And then
can I just ask real quick on this? So are these Zeiss things, they're actually inserts that go inside? Okay,
yes,
I just want to
magnetic. It's a magnetic
I think
lens.
I knew that at one point. Okay, a magnetic lens. Okay,
there's a lot of magnets in this thing, because the light shield, the light seal attaches with magnets. The light seal cushion attaches with magnets. The light seal, the insert lenses attach with magnets. So there's a whole lot of magnets in this thing. And then the last thing I was going to mention was that from the FAQ, it says that if you are on an airplane, which we mentioned before, it says and I'm just going to read this, on the airplane, customers can turn on travel mode. I guess it's sort of like airplane mode, which adapts an Apple Vision Pro to the unique motion of commercial air travel to give you the best experience. What in the world does that mean, Brett?
Whoa.
Adjust to the unique motion.
What?
And then they go on to say that, of course, you can turn on an environment and you can sit back and enjoy your movie. But I don't even know what that means. But whatever it means to adjust to the unique motion of commercial air travel, I guess I have that function. That was part of my $3,500 to get that feature. So I'll be curious to try that out.
It's like virtual shock absorbers, I guess,
exactly.
for any turbulence,
that's what I was thinking.
That's amazing. Okay, a couple of questions real quick, because this has been fascinating, just living vicariously through your pre-order here. So both of these, like, there's two bands on this, right? The first one is the one that everybody's seen, the big one that's like fat in the back, right?
This goes around the back of your head.
That's the solo knit band, correct? That's what that one is called here.
Correct.
But then it also comes with a dual loop band. So in other words, it's one or the other, right? You decide which one is going to work best for you.
And from what I have learned from just reading some reviews from other people, that although, and you described it well, the regular band looks good because it just goes around the back of your head. But after extended wear, depending upon your head size and everything else, you may find that the glasses get a little heavy and start to sag down. The dual loop band has, not only does it go, the dual is the two parts. Not only does the band go around the back of your head, it also goes over the top of your head.
Right.
So it's got some additional
I remember
support.
talking about that.
So it would not surprise me. I mean, I might decide that I'm going to use, there's the dual loop band. I might decide that I'm going to use the dual loop band 100% of the time, just because it's more comfortable to have something over the top of my head. I have no idea.
Right.
But again, I have, nothing of a hairstyle. If you've got like poofy hair, you might decide that you don't want, Brett, you do not have that problem, by the way.
Right, exactly.
But if somebody has like, a big poofy hair, they may decide that they really don't like that thing going over the top of their head. So that's just going to be another personal preference that you have.
That I got to tell you, just looking at these quickly together, like that dual loop band looks so medical to me.
Yeah, it does almost.
Versus the solo knit band. And then you lead to another review just quickly, which we can get into a little bit more in here, but this is Chance Miller from 9 to 5 Mac. And I think I like it because it looks like it's like real life pictures of somebody wearing the Vision Pro. My first thought when I looked at Chance Miller, who's not a small man, that wow, that Vision Pro looks really small on his face. But he actually talks about the fact when he looked at these pictures, it was apparently Apple executives, or the PR folks taking pictures of him wearing this. It is like, he goes, you notice my hair is like poofing up. I don't know. It just, to me, this was like one of the first times that I'm seeing somebody like wear this in the wild, even though it was a picture, but it was just kind of interesting to see how this was going to look on there. But, that just goes to your point. Yeah, with the solo knit band, like he was talking about how it fit and he had to make sure that it fit on there. But this was a good review. We can get into this too, as well.
Let me mention something about the picture that you're showing. You see how on the front of the Apple Vision Pro, when you're looking at somebody wearing it, you see how you see that blue over his eyes?
Yes.
So apparently the way that this works, and we got a preview of this last year, but the Apple Vision Pro has these different modes. And so if you're in the mode where you're looking at another person, it will actually show your own eyes on there. It's not literally showing your eyes, it's showing a reproduction of your eyes. And we'll see how freaky this looks if it's the uncanny valley effect. But the idea is that a person looking at you, they can see your eyes. They can see, if you blink, they'll see you blink. If you move your eyes left and right, they will see something that looks like the same way. And so it gives the illusion that you're actually looking through the lenses at them. But when you're watching something in the Apple Vision Pro that changes more from an augmented reality to a virtual reality, like there's a screen in front of your eyes or something like that, then the person that's looking at you does not see your eyeballs. They see something like this sort of blue, hazy sort of thing. And so it's a visual representation to somebody looking at you. They can see, that person can look at you and see, is the person wearing the Apple Vision Pro looking at me, or are they looking at something else? Another thing that I saw linked somewhere, and it may have actually been in the Chance's review that you're talking about, is that if I'm wearing an Apple Vision Pro and I start to take pictures or video, the front of the lens actually the front of the goggles actually changes to show like a lens sort of thing. I don't know exactly what the picture looks like, but something that sort of looks like a camera lens. And so that's a visual indication to people that are looking at you that you're taking a picture or that you're taking a video.
That's great. Yeah, this review I just thought was really good. So apparently, again, Apple invited several journalists to New York, right? I think that's what he said in here. And it was just a chance for them to get some additional hands-on. We don't have any reviews from the wild necessarily, but I just thought this was really good that Chance was getting into some of the practical things that you and I have been asking about or wondering about, like how is this going to, I mean, one of the first things at the very top here was right off the bat, he's like, it's heavy. This is heavy. Like when you pick it up, he said, it feels heavy. When you put it on your head for the first time, it feels heavy. But then he did say right after maybe a couple of minutes or so, once it's on, you just kind of get used to it. And I think it's just that, your brain kind of gets into the flow of where you are and what it's looking at. But this was just a really good review. I'll make sure we link it in the show notes as well, because it was just really interesting to hear him talk about that, and even just as he's seeing some of the other components of the videos. And even one thing that just struck me quickly in this review was like, you see people like with their hands like, doing the tapping like up in the air, but he's like, no, you can just leave your hands like in your lap, right, and on your knee, and it works out just fine on this. So good review here in 9 to 5 Mac for sure.
He's also showing off in here that some companies like Disney have a special app for the Apple Vision Pro. And one of the things the Disney app is offering is, imagine you're watching a movie. Instead of just watching the movie filling your screen, it might be cool if you could, feel like you're in some theater or some interesting environment. And so Apple itself has some built-in environments. So if you want to pretend like you're watching a movie on the beach or on a mountaintop, but third parties can do this too.
You can do that.
And so what Disney has, for example, is one of their environments is if you look all around you, it looks as if you are sitting in the what's called the land speed or whatever in Star Wars on Tatooine. And so you could be watching like The Mandalorian or a Star Wars movie, and you're in, so your screen is showing the movie, but if you look above or around the screen and around you, you're actually on Tatooine, which is sort of a fun way environment. And Disney also has, through their app, if you're watching one of their movies through their app, they have an environment that's called the Disney Theater. So it looks like this really nice theater just around you. So it's just sort of an added thing that not only are you watching a screen size that can be whatever size you want. You could make it the biggest screen, like the biggest IMAX type movie theater experience, but you can truly add to the movie theater experience by having what looks like a movie theater around you.
Okay, well, Jeff, you just mentioned like Disney Plus, and I mean, I think one of the things that we're all looking forward to is the content, especially 3D like movie content that's going to be on the Vision Pro, which is why when I saw this story you linked to today, that Netflix is not going to put their app on the Vision Pro, at least not yet, not at the beginning. I guess I was just a little flabbergasted. I would think to myself, it's like, this is one of the big things that everybody's looking for the Vision Pro. How can a company like Netflix not be there? Now, you did have another story. I think HBO Max or the Max app is going to be available on the Vision Pro at the beginning, but Netflix is not. Just interesting. And then immediately in the second second I read this headline, I'm thinking, well, just not yet. I mean, how can you not, right? Maybe they're just kind of holding back and waiting to see what's going to happen exactly.
I think that's right, but it's not even just Netflix. We also learned this morning that YouTube is taking the same approach, and it doesn't mean that you can't watch Netflix or YouTube on the Vision Pro.
Oh,
you can,
interesting,
but you'll watch it in a web browser, so you can still make the web browser really big and do that sort of stuff. But the big thing that you can't do is download a video to watch it, for example, on a plane. I guess you could watch it on a plane if you got enough bandwidth for it. But no, but the question for me, Brett, is why did they do that? I mean, we know that for this first year, very, very few of these units relatively are going to be sold. And so it's not like they're giving up a lot of market. And maybe they just want to get back. I think a lot of companies, I think a lot of companies are gun shy about Apple because they know that Apple's, the big gorilla, and maybe they can try to cut some deal where Apple gets, I just think that they're being cautious. Some people are enthusiastic like HBO, Max and Disney, but other companies, and are they making the right decision or the wrong decision? Who knows? Well, time will tell. We'll see.
Another link that you had was literally every 3D film you can watch on Apple Vision Pro at launch, which is great because I'm expected on February 2nd, my friend, you're going to be at least spinning up some of these movies. I'm very excited about the Dune. I'm very excited about Dune 2 coming out. But I mean, that's going to look great. There's a Cirque du Soleil. There's Avatar, of course, Jurassic World. I mean, these have to be just amazing. Like, I mean, I just can't wait to see what these things look like, on a huge screen in the Vision Pro.
I was listening to another podcast this week. I think it was the Mac. What's the one on the Twit Network? With Alex Lindsay and all of them.
Mac Break Weekly. Yeah.
Mac Break Weekly. Thank you. And Mac Break Weekly, Alex Lindsay was pointing out that over the last decade or so, there's been sort of two types of 3D movies. There have been a very small number from directors that really try to do 3D right. And that includes, for example, Avatar and Dune and those sorts of ones. And then there's a whole bunch of them where they actually film it in 2D. And then later they just sort of add an extra plane that, yes, it's in 3D, but it's not a huge effect. And so some of these movies are going to be the latter. In fact, most of them will. But for the movies that were actually done with a lot of care, and I think Avatar is a perfect example of that, the second Avatar movie, which I have not seen yet. That I will probably go ahead and either purchase or rent that one, because something that was really made for 3D, and these goggles that are really made to show 3D as amazing as possible, I think that could be a really cool experience. So that'll be interesting to see. So far, I've been one of these people, Brett, that's not really a fan of 3D. If I'm going to the movie theater,
yeah,
and I have a choice, right, I don't see the 3D version because it's usually brighter and stuff like that. But the Apple Vision Pro might be the exception that finally gets me to say, this is the one environment in which 3D is really worth it. Or maybe not. I don't know. I can't wait to find out.
We don't know. Right. Oh, my goodness. Well, I want to find out in 2 weeks, because you are going to have it in 2 weeks on February 2nd. I just love the fact that, I've done this before. I can't remember what the product was. It may have been one of my iPhones several years ago that pretty much all the Apple stores across the country open at 10 a.m., right, whatever the local time is. But if you have some kind of a pre-order, then you can I've only got it at around 9 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
And I've been able to go in and get it. But the fact that you got an 8:30 appointment, I just think that that's going to be great. And, I think you and I have either talked about this or we've seen the headlines. Like, Apple apparently has been training several of the store managers and employees across the country, right, to get everybody up to speed on how to set everybody up and make sure that they're accommodated on launch day. I don't know, just really excited. And hopefully, right, in the next 2 weeks, Jeff, we would expect that some of our favorite technology reviewers will actually get a version, right? I mean, they'll get a product. Apple is very good typically about sending these out early. And, we'll see some YouTube videos. In other words, by the time that you get it, we should have a very good idea of even maybe some more of these answers being answered, right. Questions that we have, and just to kind of understand maybe generally how it's going to be, accepted. Just so excited. I love it.
Yeah, it's a brand new platform. I mean, it's not very often in your lifetime that you get to see Apple introduce a new platform. So.
Well, the iPhone is not a brand new platform, and thank goodness, because it just continues to get more mature. And just quickly, I think you started off your post today, Jeff, with something that we have been talking about, stolen iPhones, right? And the fact that once they get a stolen iPhone, people can get access to your passcode, and it really all hits the fan at that point. It really can. I mean, it's just fantastic. Joanna Stern and her colleagues at the Wall Street Journal have been reporting on this, and that's what we have been referencing. And finally, now it looks like with 17.3, iOS 17.3, which we're thinking may be out in the next week or so, is going to be available, and it's going to have some protections against these stolen iPhones, stolen Apple devices, and that's just great. I know we're both happy about this. We just wish it would have happened a little sooner.
Yeah. I expect this to come out probably Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. When you get it, it will not be on by default, but I encourage you to go in wherever it's located. It's called Stolen Device Protection. And if you turn on Stolen Device Protection, what it means is it makes it a little bit harder to change your password. If you try to do it, it will say, okay, let's check now. Let me do a Face ID. I'm going to wait about an hour before I let it happen. Apple has a series of things that they're doing to add protection so that if somebody was to steal your iPhone and try to immediately change your password, you would still have some time once you figure out the theft has happened to protect yourself. And the person that's changing, so it will slow things down if you are the true owner of the iPhone and you're trying to change your password. But I think it's worth it to also put an extra barrier that might be the difference between the bad guys taking over your iPhone and not. So I'm glad to see.
Yeah, I feel like that this is a no-brainer. Like, make sure you have this turned on. Although John Gruber is always very good to point out some, not necessarily contrarian views, but like other considerations on here, right? He had an old iPhone that hasn't left his house, and he tried to change the iCloud password, and it made him wait an hour or something like that, right? Where it'll just be interesting to kind of see, and hopefully over the time that Apple will kind of learn from this, that it's like, hey, yeah, this phone hasn't moved. It's okay. We can let him change their iCloud password versus, if I'm traveling across the country, I'm in Los Angeles, it's like, wait, this isn't where Brett usually is. It's weird that, it's in that location. So maybe we'll just require a little bit of a delay before we allow any changes on that. Anyway, I think this is as good as it's going to get right now, and hopefully Apple will continue to learn from this on there.
Agreed.
Good stuff on that. All right. Let's talk about some lawsuits that include Apple. Just real quick, we don't spend a lot of time on this, but I was actually talking to my son, who is been a Fortnite player, and we actually played together. And back in the day, Jeff, he would play on the Xbox, and guess what I would play on? I would play on my iPad, and it worked out great. And then a little time after that, Epic decided, we don't like the way that Apple's kind of doing their store, so we're just going to bring a lawsuit against them. I think that was in 2020, right? So it wasn't too far. Anyway, we reported on this a little bit, and it's gone through all the normal machinations in the legal proceedings, and finally, Epic was continuing to not get the ruling that they wanted, and so they appealed to the Supreme Court, right? And you linked to a good story in MacStories from John Voorhees that they didn't really get any, and basically the Supreme Court, as they want to do many times, is like, yeah, you know what, we'll pass on this. And we'll see how this goes. Although I think you mentioned John Gruber or somebody saying it just really means that the Fortnite game or the app will probably never come back to the iPad.
Yeah. When I think about back when it was available on the iPad and the Mac, and my kids used to play it all the time, and often ask me, Dad, can you please, can I have $5 or $10 to buy a banana costume or something like that?
Oh yeah, all those you got to get the V-Bucks. Oh yes,
Epic. I am positive, especially around the holidays, Epic could have gotten a lot of money out of the Richardson household if they had not started this battle with Apple. But whatever for the most part, Epic lost. The one small part of the lawsuit that they did win is that Apple has to allow people that sell digital goods like this, things that are just like that, and that if you want to not have it as an in-app purchase, if you want to instead send someone to your own website to pay for it in your website, you can do that. And there's all these scary warnings that come up when you do it, that you're leaving the Apple, protected garden and you're going somewhere else. And also Apple has not made it very favorable, because Apple says that if you still go to somebody else's website, instead of paying, 30% of the price to Apple, you pay, what is it, 27%? So it's like you're not even really making that much money by going, and plus you got to handle all the credit card processing fees on your own. So I'm sure some people will find it worthwhile to use this system. Others will not. It was the most narrow victory that Epic can win, but because Apple won the rest of the antitrust lawsuit, they have a court order that Epic's going to have to pay Apple $75 million for their attorney's fees and stuff.
73.
So, Epic did not really accomplish very much in the lawsuit. Yeah. So, but it's interesting, to see what happened.
Another lawsuit that I got to tell you even got the attention of my wife, because she loves her oxygen sensor in her Apple Watch. We reported on this a couple of weeks ago or so that Apple had to temporarily stop selling the Apple Watch 9 and the Ultra 2, I believe, because it had this oxygen sensor, which another company claimed they had the patent to, right? So it sounds like, well, I'll let you explain it a little bit here. You're an appellate lawyer, so you kind of understand a little bit more, I think, of exactly, they can still sell it, but not with the oxygen sensor, but you could try to find it maybe like on Amazon or somewhere else that they aren't restricted from selling it, right? Is that halfway correct, Jeff?
The lower court ruling is that Apple cannot import any Apple Watch that has this feature enabled. And so what Apple is apparently doing, and Apple asked the appellate court to stay that while the appeal is pending. Although they did do so for a couple of days to sort of give them time to brief the issue, the appellate court has decided, we're not going to have this be stayed pending the appeal. So the appeal process itself will take a couple of months. But during the appeal process, Apple cannot sell an Apple Watch that has the blood oxygen detection enabled. And so what apparently Apple's going to do is, it sounds like Apple's going to sell the exact same device. They're not going to go back and change the hardware. That would probably be really expensive. But through a software update, they're just turning off the feature for new sales. Now, if you have a current one, whether it be an Apple Watch 9 or an 8 or a 7, any model Apple Watch that has blood oxygen sensor, if you already own it, that function is going to continue to work.
You're fine.
All that they have is a ban on new imports during this period of time. And then when the appeal is over in a few months, if Apple wins, you got to presume that they're going to issue a new software update, which turns it back on again. Or if Apple loses, then you have to think that Apple and Massimo will try to settle it and reach some understanding. And who knows? I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Wow. Just what a mess.
It is a mess.
Because nothing against Massimo or Apple or anything, but it's just like, man, this is great technology that I definitely want to see the Apple Watch just continue to be available from the aspect of all of the potential health components on there. I've always thought that this is really more of a health device than anything else, and I absolutely love my Apple Watch, and so does the entire family. And we use it, right? From the sleep aspect of it, from the running, from the steps. Anyway, just good stuff. And I hope hopefully it'll get ironed out there.
I will say, Brett, that of all the health features on my Apple Watch, though, I have to admit, blood oxygen detection, every once in a while, I'll do it just sort of as a gimmick. It's not something I do regularly. I thought about it a lot at the beginning of COVID because people used to say that your blood oxygen was sort of an indication of whether, so I was using it more a couple of years ago. But like, if you ask me how many months has it been since the last time I've used it, I mean, maybe 6 months. It's been a long time.
I'm trying to remember exactly. I said to my wife it uses this, and I believe it's because she's been tracking her sleep a lot better, right? So we haven't had any other sleep trackers. In fact, she was going to do a sleep study just to see, testing from a sleep apnea kind of an aspect, right? I mean, she's mostly fine. It's just she wanted to make sure, like, was there anything because her father had it, that kind of a thing. Yeah. And so this specifically, I know she checks
this
every
has some
morning.
relevance to it. Yeah, I didn't realize
it does exactly. Yeah, and so I'm just trying to think, like, that's where I believe that she's doing it, and I think it's involved in, like, in the morning. She wants to know, did your oxygen level drop? And by the way, we should put in the same disclaimer. It's like, Apple doesn't sell this as a sleep tracker, and there's all kinds of disclaimers of like, this isn't going to be completely true. And the same thing would be for the blood oxygen level. And of course, they just have to say that because of lawyers more than anything else. But if the fact is that we're wearing it already, right? It's better than nothing, I guess, is the way that I look at it. And while the sleep tracking may not be 100%, it's good enough for the things that I might be looking at, or somebody like, my wife on that. So good stuff on that. Another gadget that we have talked about quite a bit here, let me find it down here because I know we talked about it, is the Anker. Is it called the Cube, the MagSafe Cube, or exactly what Anker calls that? I can't remember. You've got it probably sitting on your desk right there.
Yeah, the Anker 3-in-1 Cube. It's literally right below your face cube on my monitor. I'm looking at it right now, and I love it because it's a small little device, charges all of my stuff. It's great.
I didn't get it yet. It's $150 is what at least the retail price is. But I know we talked about this last week, I believe. Anker now has a Qi 2 charger pack, which just means that it can be a little bit more powerful. And they call this the MagGo 3-in-1 charging station, I believe. I might have to actually get this, Jeff, because I travel with the MagSafe Duo. Isn't that the thing from Apple, right? That they stopped selling because it was lightning plug on there. But I loved it because I could charge my phone and my watch at the same time, and this Anker device looks really, really good.
The main thing that I wanted people to know is if you want high-speed wireless charging for your iPhone, Apple's technology is called MagSafe. So if you see something that says it's got MagSafe, it's the Apple-approved technology.
They got it licensed,
but
right?
Now, Qi, which is spelled QI, of course, the Qi 2, so QI and the number 2, something that is QI2, Qi 2, is just as fast as MagSafe, but it doesn't use the Apple specification. It uses the open standard. Now, it's an open standard that was influenced by Apple, but because you're not paying the royalty to Apple, it means that a manufacturer can offer it for a little bit cheaper. And so this is a perfect example because Anker is selling these 2 devices. One of them is advertised to be MagSafe compatible. You can get it on Amazon for like $135 right now. Or if you get their version that, what do they call it? They call it They say MagSafe compatible, but they call it MagGo. It's a totally different thing, Brett.
I'm so glad you pointed that out. Oh my goodness!
So with MagGo, if they sold it here in Louisiana, it might be GEAUX, MagGo. But
yeah, I like that. Okay, very good.
So by calling it something else, they can be a little bit cheaper. And here, at least based on the Amazon prices, it's about $25 cheaper for the suggested manufacturer price. It's a little bit more.
I didn't even see
I haven't seen anything. I mean, this is all new.
Yeah.
But this is just something for you to be looking for as a consumer. If you want this technology, do you want the complete Apple certified, it's going to work? Or do you want Qi 2, which I really think should be just as good? It's just
I would think
that's the open standard. So, and it could be a little bit cheaper. And I'm glad that the open standard's out there because now all of these companies that have really thin margins and they just want something that has the fastest possible wireless charging, but they don't want to pay Apple anything, they can use Qi 2, and hopefully it means we'll see even more useful devices like this. So again, I linked to this new product because it does look like it's an interesting product, but I really just wanted people to be aware of the difference.
I'm so glad you pointed that out.
And MagSafe.
Yeah. I completely overlooked that on there. I'm so glad. The other thing quickly, I know neither of us have this device, but the way that it's hard to see if you're not looking at a picture here, but the way that I've seen it is the iPhone is kind of at a slant, that would be good. In other words, when I put it on the stand, on this charging stand, it's at a slant, a little bit. And so if I'm looking down at it, like if it was on my desk, for example, that would be fine. But I wonder, can it be all the way straight? Because then I'm thinking if it's sitting on my bedside table, I want to turn over and look, and I don't want it to be at a slant. Does that make sense? And I haven't seen any pictures yet.
I don't know if it goes all the way to 90 degrees, but I will tell you,
because I feel like if it does, it'll tip over is what I'm afraid of. But anyway, go ahead, please.
Even on a bedstand, because I have a different device for my bedstand, I still don't use it at completely 90 degrees. I still have a slight
really?
to it.
Okay.
And that just sort of that works perfectly fine. So I suspect that this is going to give you the angles you want, but you do raise a good question. I don't know what the expansion angles go to.
I might have to buy it just to do the for public service aspect on there. We have an inconvenient hole in the Apple in the Apple board, but apparently it's been filled already. I thought this was just great because when I hear Al Gore, everybody has their own impressions, but one of the aspects that I do from a technology angle is he has always been a Mac user, right? In fact, John Gruber calls him a Mac nerd. And, several years ago, many years ago now, we remember that film Inconvenient Truth, right? That Al Gore was going around, proselytizing on that. But I just remember that video, which is still available, I think, on Apple TV Plus. But I just remember the impact that it had from like how gorgeous it looked. And I remember even at the time it was done on Final Cut Pro. Anyway, Al Gore apparently has served his time on the Apple board of directors and is moving off now. So I'm glad that we can at least recognize that.
Yeah, and this is a nice post for John Gruber. He points out, for example, that Al Gore got a lot of flack because his political opponents claimed that he said that he invented the internet, which is not at all what he said, but regardless. Right. And so he links to the Snopes article on that. But yeah, I mean, for an Apple director, you would hope that somebody that's on the board of directors of Apple actually understands technology. And I tell you, Al Gore had many things that he brought to the table, his political experience, which is incredibly important for a company like Apple. But when it comes to technology, he wasn't faking it. I mean, I really think that he was a true tech enthusiast.
Yeah.
And I love it. So, we'll see what the new people are that two people are retiring from the board. They've already announced one replacement. And I guess eventually they'll have a second one as well. We'll see. But hopefully it works well. Here's
another story you'll link to today that kind of just blew me away.
This was interesting.
The top spot in global phone market for the first time. My first reaction was, what, don't they already have the phone market? And the second reaction after I read through this, I'm like, wow, like that's amazing that it has never happened in this way until 2023.
Yeah, as popular as the iPhone has been for all of these years, it has still not had the largest market share because so many people buy the lesser expensive phones around the world, which are for many people's needs, all that they need. That the iPhone is the king for the medium, to high end. But when it comes to the lower end, Apple has never been there. But for the first time in 2023, what are the numbers here? So Apple had 20. It's such a there you go. Apple had 20.1% of the global market, and Samsung had 19.4. So we're talking about a very slight difference, but just the idea that iPhone was ahead of Samsung and all of the others, that tells you what I read this as is more and more people, not that the low end of the smartphone market still isn't huge, but I think that people are starting to graduate up and that over time, more people are deciding I might want an iPhone. Now let's also remember that here in the United States, we might all buy the latest, greatest iPhones, but Apple will sell many, many generations of iPhone.
Right, exactly.
And so in some of these markets, it might be somebody not buying, the latest and greatest, but an iPhone that's 4 or 5 generations old, but that still gives them lots of features that they're happy with. So that maybe that's how Apple's getting market share, and maybe it's not people moving up. But regardless, as popular as the iPhone is, this was the first time in history that they were number one just on units sold. So that's a milestone.
And it's still only 20% of the global phone market. But I mean, you did a good job of explaining why. I understand why, but I don't know. If somebody would just ask off the street, I kind of probably would have thrown out a much bigger number than that. But now that I understand sort of the basis behind it, that's still pretty incredible. 20% of the entire market is great.
Around the world, yeah.
Let's go to the Where Are You At segment. What a fun story this one was.
My goodness.
Okay, so it's a gentleman out of Toronto. I'll just set it up real quick. Apparently, he had one SUV stolen, and then he didn't want it to happen again, so he put AirTags in a second SUV. It got stolen, and you pick up the story from there, Jeff.
Well, I mean, let me first say that you should read this story if this interests you, because it's like a detective story. He tracks it. He tracked the car from when it was stolen to the train, near his house, to the dock in Montreal, and then he loses contact for a while, and then it shows up in, I think it was the United Arab Emirates, and then eventually in Dubai. He could actually see that it is on a used car lot in Dubai. So first of all, let's just talk about how interesting is that whatever the cost of shipping the car is, the thieves still think it's advantageous to steal the car and ship it all the way to Dubai. But then second, he talks about how he tried to get relief going to the police, and according to the article, they weren't very helpful. He even tried to go to Interpol, which makes me think of like a spy movie or something like that.
Yeah.
But so it's got to be
slow horses happening here or something.
Exactly. There you go. So maybe this is the next great movie. Who knows? But it's fascinating that like it's almost like he can all but see his car on this used car lot around the world, and there's really nothing he can do about it. But I guess there's some satisfaction in knowing, at least it solves the mystery. And who knows, maybe somehow something will. I don't know if he'll ever get his car back, but it's interesting.
Yeah, like you said, so many things are just mind-boggling to me. First of all, the fact that this AirTag technology is working even when it's going across an ocean. Well, it actually didn't ping it across the ocean, to be fair.
Yeah.
But it's like you were still able to track it all the way around the world. Like, that's incredible to me. The other thing, quickly, there's a picture in here where it's a York Regional Police officer texted a picture. In other words, this police officer pulled up to, it looks like this is a train rail here. And the police officer took a picture of the shipping container that apparently contained his SUV, sent this picture to him, but then said, sorry, I can't do anything about it. Like, because it's a shipping container, what he had to say, like, you have to talk to the Canadian Pacific Kansas City Railway police or security. And it's like, how frustrating is that? The police officer is sitting right next to the shipping container with the hell that he knows has the car, but he still can't do anything. I'm already screaming, but I would be screaming very much louder, I think, if that happened there. But what an incredible story there.
It really is.
I don't even know if there's a happy ending. I don't even got it back necessarily, unless he went to Dubai. But hopefully he'll post something. Anyway, just a really fascinating story on there. I like it. Okay, how about some Apple TV Plus news real quick, because we are always very happy to talk about this. For All Mankind, I am very happy to let you know, Jeff, that I am still planning to watch For All Mankind. You're talking about the final episode. I think it just you viewed. Don't give any spoilers, of course, but obviously we know you've been a big fan of this show for a long time.
Yeah. Well, season 4 just ended, and they have not yet announced season 5. I'm certainly hoping that Apple renews it for a season 5. But season 4 had a great ending, and the one thing I wanted to tell you is for anyone that has watched it, there's a great podcast that I recommended a link to there called NASA Vending Machine. If you watch the show, you will understand why vending machines are important. But Jason Snell and Dan Morin did a great job of interviewing the showrunners, and so they actually can talk about what went into the show and how they made certain decisions, and it's really, really great stuff. So that's a fun podcast to listen to if you like the show.
I just love their little logo here. I mean, that's like one of the best podcast logos, the NASA vending machine. I love
it. It makes sense if you watch the show.
Okay. Which I will. One day. How about Schmigadoon is now Schmigadoon? This is a little sad. My wife and I loved the first season of Schmigadoon. We haven't seen the second one yet. I think we're going to start that very, very soon. But apparently not enough other people liked it to come back for a third season.
Yeah, what was frustrating to me is that, I mean, it wasn't the best show ever, but it was certainly enjoyable. And if you like musicals, every show was a musical with original music. Some of the songs were very memorable and very catchy. And what was frustrating to me is the showrunners revealed in this article that they already wrote season 3, and they've already wrote 25 new songs for season 3. They just want to start filming it. And Apple said, we're not picking it up. And so they said something at the very end of, maybe some other studio will pick it up. Who knows? I guess it's possible. It may show up on Netflix or somewhere else. But it's a great show. And it's one that I would recommend. If you're into musicals, I recommended it and enjoyed it. And I would have loved to have seen a third season on Apple TV Plus, but apparently not.
It just made me think quickly. It's like we've seen Apple TV Plus now been around as long as it has. We've talked several stories about how they put a lot of money into some, big budget. They do it right? The movies, they do it right. Yeah. But now I feel like it's been around long enough. They're starting to be like a player, like we've heard, the Marvel Studios didn't pick it up, for here, and they shipped it off to Fox, or, in other words, I don't know anything about that industry necessarily from the, ins and outs and the inside baseball, but it just seems like now Apple TV Plus is coming into its own, because I would think, as successful as this was on Apple TV Plus, somebody else is going to pick it up, right? Because that's part of just the industry. Anyway, just to kind of see that Apple TV Plus is kind of coming into its own as an industry player there is great.
I mentioned one last thing about Apple TV Plus, which is that I just finished watching the first season of a show called Monarch: Legacy of Monsters, which is basically a Godzilla movie, and it was a Godzilla TV series. It's it's not the best show I've seen on Apple TV Plus, but I did enjoy it. And if you have an interest in it, I thought it was worth watching. I'm actually particularly interested now because apparently Apple recorded some of it in 3D, and so I might go back and watch another episode. Rewatch one of the episodes on the Apple Vision Pro.
You gotta
see how it looks. To see how Godzilla looks in 3D and stuff. So anyway, that's another show out there if you're looking for something to watch.
In the know, here is a nice gadget that I found. We just had Christmas, but I'm already thinking about next Christmas. Jeff, by the way, because I'll tell you why. Christmas 2022, my amazing daughter got me an Ember coffee mug. So you've heard these before, right?
You love it. You said
I love it every single day. I love this mug. In fact, my wife bought one because she liked it so much. She had to buy her own. But it's like that. It's such a great device. I love it. It works great because I have the little coaster. It keeps my coffee at the exact temperature that I say to keep it at, because it has an app on my iPhone. So I set it at 139 degrees and it stays there as long as it has the charge. So I have been following Ember now for a while. And I remember several months ago, they announced an Ember Smart Travel Mug 2 Plus. And I'm like, well, I don't know about the travel mugs because these are not inexpensive. In fact, this travel mug is $199. But Jeff, the thing that caught my eye about it, that it's finally available now, is that you always had the ability to control it on the app on your iPhone, but now the Ember Smart Travel Mug 2 Plus comes with Apple Find My. So if you ever find
that actually makes good sense.
When you need to find your coffee mug, you now have an ability, like you can actually change the temperature and everything through the app, but now you can go into Apple Find My app and then you can make sure that you can add it to your list of devices, and you can always find your coffee when you need it. So I don't have this yet, but this is on my early list for Christmas now.
I can see that. Did you leave it upstairs? Did you leave it in the car? Where did you leave it? Someplace else. So that actually makes some sense.
But a $200 mug, I'm probably not going to be leaving it anywhere. I'm going to be keeping that pretty close to me. But just the fact that I know that it can, then that way I can track it to Dubai if I need to. So it's all good.
I like it. I'm going to end up today where we started, which is some more tips on the Apple Vision Pro.
Oh, good.
For people who are interested in it. And there's two things I'm going to recommend. Apple updated a whole bunch of its website today to reflect new information. One thing is they now have a technical specs page. And so if you want to get all sorts of it, and I haven't even started to study it yet, but it includes some things that I described earlier, like the fact that there's different capacities, 256, 512. And
right. I saw that here.
And then it's got all these itty bitty things like 12 millisecond photon to photon latency. Is that fast enough for you, Brett? How fast do you like
think
photon to photon?
I got to check my vending
to
machine.
You'll have to see exactly. But some of this is all over my head. But it is all sorts of details. And so I'm going to take a look at it just if you want the nitty gritty. The other end of the extreme, if you don't want the nitty gritty, but you just want the big picture, Apple has released a page for something called the guided tour. And what I think this is how you were talking earlier, Brett, about how people went to New York this week and they got like a sort of a one-on-one demonstration.
Right.
This is a video that seems very, very close to what those people did. Of course, you're not wearing the device, but you're getting sort of the illusion of it. It's about a 9-minute video. I just watched it this morning after I purchased it.
Okay, you watched
it. And
it's
full of information I had never seen before. It's, as if somebody is guiding you. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if you go to an Apple store and have a demo. It's probably going to be the same thing that, or at least very similar to what you're watching here.
Right.
So if you want to get a sense of the Vision Pro and you've got 9 minutes to spare, I totally recommend the video. I really enjoyed watching it this morning. Lots and lots of information.
That is great. I will make sure it's linked in the show notes. A guided tour of Apple Vision Pro. And yeah, I mean, there's several other videos. Some of these I think we've seen
those
before.
Are actually,
you know,
actually, those are snippets of it. At the bottom when it says see how it works. Those are just little subsets of the main video. But the top of the page has got the full video. And it's not very long. It's less than 10 minutes.
Jeff, I wish we could jump to 2 weeks from today immediately because I just want to hear like when you get your hands on it. But it's going to be a pretty exciting next couple of weeks, and like we discussed, I think by next Friday we'll definitely have seen some folks probably hands-on reviews, some YouTube videos and stuff. And yeah, you know, if you're not interested in Vision Pro, you may not want to have to listen to the next couple of episodes but it's going to be worth it. We promise. And we'll talk about the other things as well. As always, Jeff, thanks very much. We will talk with you next week.
Thanks, Brett. Bye-bye, everybody.